Hi everyone, this is Paul here from the Magdalene Centre. Today I'm going to be talking about the new moon in Virgo, which is on the 20th of September at 5:29 AM Universal Time. This equates to 6:29 AM in the UK because we're an hour ahead due to the clocks being forward for summer. Now, with the new moon in Virgo, this is an opportunity to set new intentions in areas ruled by Virgo. So this is things like our physical health and how we maintain it. So if Taurus is the physical body, Virgo is all about the activities that we do to nurture the body or maintain it. So this is things like what food we put into our bodies, what drinks are we using, what kind of exercise are we doing to maintain its strength, are we getting enough rest to make sure that the mind can recharge and isn't getting overwhelmed and tired. And it's also about work and service and our relationship with it, because Virgo is very much about hard work and service, but we also need to remember that life isn't all about work. We do need to have time for downtime to rest, recuperate and enjoy ourselves. So one of the questions that the Virgo new moon may throw up for us is, do we live to work or do we work in order to live? And obviously the difference here being that living to work is where our lives are so dominated by work that and we engage in workaholism that we don't actually take time to spend time with ourselves, to relax and remain connected to ourselves. Whereas working in order to live is where we acknowledge the fact that we do need to work, we do need to make a contribution to society, because we're part of a greater whole. We can't just be selfish and think only of ourselves. We do need to think about our local communities. But at the same time, our lives aren't dominated by this. We're not controlled by societal expectation. Our sense of identity is not confined to the work we provide for others and the services we provide. We also take time to spend time with ourselves, to relax, to make sure that our own needs are being met and that we're doing whatever we need to do to nurture ourselves. So Virgos tends to be quite a health conscious sign. So in terms of the body, Virgo rules the digestive system, more specifically the intestines, where we do all the digesting and assimilation. So this is symbolic of Virgo's function within the mind of taking the information that we have and digesting it, breaking it down to understand it further and analysing it to figure out what information is useful and what needs to be discarded because it's not doing us any favours. So Virgo is very much about discernment. She's also linked to the harvest, so this is the whole separating of the wheat from the chaff, and symbolically this basically is about separating truth from illusion. So Virgo is about the discerning side of the left side of the mind, so we're talking about logic and reasoning here as opposed to intuition. So when we're engaging with Virgo constructively, what we're looking at is a mind that can separate truth from falsehood, is not easily deceived, and can analyse what is useful and apply it in a way that's going to be helpful, can be used for service as opposed to self-aggrandisement, and brings a greater alignment to the whole. Because Virgo is all about bringing order to chaos. She's the opposite of Pisces, which is the kind of chaos that everything emerges from. There's always an underlying order to things, but Pisces brings an element to chaos which is sometimes necessary in order to break down the old orders within our lives in order for a new degree of order to emerge, which is more life-sustaining, life-enriching and life-enhancing. But in order to do this, we have to understand our own minds, and in many cases we need to bring it under control, because Virgo, with it being so focused on discriminating truth from falsehood, if it gets it out of alignment, we can end up criticising things which are actually okay as they are. And Virgo's about self-honesty. So whereas Leo is that self-expression, that raw creative urge, Virgo is about refining it and seeing how can we improve it, and how can we convert an untried creative project into something that will help other people and not just ourselves, so it becomes a service essentially. But in the process of doing this, one of the side effects, or one of the downsides of Virgo, or one of its key traps, which many people often think of when they hear of Virgo, is a tendency towards criticism and not thinking things are good enough. Because Virgo is all about self-improvement. It's looking at things, spotting where there are flaws in it and how they can be improved. But at the same time, this needs to be tempered with unconditional self-acceptance, because unfettered self-criticism can quickly destroy our self-worth, and to the point where we just don't feel like there's no point in trying anything or doing anything, because we're just going to get it wrong. So if for whatever reason we have a mindset of we're not good enough, we're not worthy enough, we're not intelligent enough, skillful enough, beautiful enough, you name it, then we've allowed the inner critic to take too much strength here, and we need to rein it in again. And this doesn't work. This isn't going to happen through lambasting it or getting angry over it, because this just makes it worse. What we need to do is learn to take a breath, take a step back and observe what our mind is thinking and question it. Because, as I said before, Virgo is about discerning, so when we have these thoughts which are rather critical, we can use that power to discern to ask, is that true? Is what I'm thinking an accurate reflection, or is this just another ego distortion where the ego is using perfectionism to try to control what we're doing and keep us playing small, rather than expressing that divine spark that is within us? So the new moon in Virgo may well prove an opportunity for us to change the relationship we have with our minds, with our bodies, and embrace more self-love. Virgo is also about the descent of spirit into matter, so it's taking that spiritual energy of Pisces and radiating outwards through acts of service. Because whilst the spiritual energy may be all around us, which it is at the end of the day, many people feel separated from it for whatever reason, and people who do feel a strong connection with it can serve as vessels for that spirit, so the spirit is manifest through our actions of service and love to one another, where we help each other, not because it's going to earn us brownie points or it's going to get us any kind of reward in heaven, whatever you think about it. We do it because it's right, and our heart guides us towards doing it. Now we have two other planets that are in direct aspect to the new moon. The main one is Chiron in Pisces. It's retrograde at the moment, almost directly opposite the new moon, which is slightly further on. But Chiron retrograde is all about highlighting that wound of disconnection from spirit, because all of us at the end of the day, whether we realise it consciously or not, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. But most of us, or nearly all of us, start off thinking we're a human being having a spiritual experience. And with Chiron in Pisces, the wound is feeling disconnected from that source, and sometimes this can lead to feeling abandoned by source. We haven't been abandoned at all. The sources of universal love, of connection, of psychic sensitivity and empathy for our fellow beings, it's always there. We always have the potential to tap into that. The Chiron in Pisces indicates wounds that we hold within the ego that keep us separated from it. And until we face those wounds of separation, in whatever way they manifest, we'll continue to play out the same dysfunctional patterns in life. However, if we can slow down and become conscious of what the actual wound is that causes us to separate, because these wounds of separation are the driving forces behind addictions, whether that be to drugs, alcohol, sweet foods. In some places it's actually addiction to work, because it's a distraction from facing ourselves. It could be codependency in relationships, but either way, these are all addictions to something external to us as a means of trying to recreate that connection that we feel is lacking in our lives. But when we realise that the connection that we're looking for is actually inside us, and we make that transition to looking for connection and power external to us, and instead turning inwards and connecting with the core of our being, and opening up to the spiritual energy that is all around us, then these wounds can be healed. But we have to have the courage to take that step to begin with. If we never take that step of questioning why we're feeling the way we are, of questioning the actions that we take and why we end up doing it, even though more often than not we know it's not good for us, but we still engage with these self-sabotaging behaviours. So it's this full or new moon is an opportunity to start asking ourselves why. Why do we engage in these behaviours, and what is the driving force behind it? Why do we think certain things about ourselves, like why do we then think we're not good enough, or why do we think we're not worthy of love? And as you start challenging things, because at the end of the day they're all based on falsehoods, and the thing with the nature of truth is that no matter how much you question it, no matter how skeptical you are of it, it will always survive scrutiny. Lies and self-deception cannot survive that level of scrutiny where we're constantly questioning why. Why do we think this about ourselves? Why do we think about others this way? At the end of the day, when we're feeling the need to really criticise other people, it's because we're already criticising ourselves very heavily, and because we can't match up to our own internal standards, we then subject other people to it, and we judge them based on the fact that they can't achieve those standards, even when we ourselves can't. So we need to learn to, when the ego is set in the trap of perfectionism, we need to question it and ask, why is this not good enough? What standard are you actually measuring against? Because the thing is, the idea of perfection, according to the ego, is nebulous. It's completely vague on purpose, because we can never achieve it. The ego by nature is imperfect. It's an illusion that is necessary. It allows us to interact with the world around us, but the ego does not survive beyond the doors of death. It naturally disappears on passing. And as grim as that may sound, all it emphasises the fact that the ego is just a necessary illusion to keep us alive. It's not there to rule our lives. It's meant to be the servant, and all we need to do to purify it is to embrace self-acceptance again, to embrace self-love, and to accept, yeah, we're not perfect. Yes, we can improve things, but let's not be unrealistic here. Let's set intentions that we can actually achieve, and when we do achieve them, we can then move from there to the next step in the journey of improvement. But if we're just looking at the end game, which is all about perfection that we can't actually achieve, we're never going to get there, because the ego will fail at doing that. That's just the way things are. But if we can embrace unconditional self-love, it's absolutely fine to keep becoming a better person, but as long as this is based around a loving sense of self and using service as an antidote to that. So we're not... Service is a way of getting outside of our own heads. By focusing external to ourselves, focusing on other people and how we can help them, anyone who's engaged in service that's been motivated by the heart will know how good it feels to know that we've made a positive difference. We may not get public recognition for it, but that's absolutely fine. We know what we did, we know how we've helped another person, and we don't have to have it publicly recognised. It's perfectly fine to be the only ones who know about it. But if we've done something with pure motive of love and loving service, then we know that we've done the best we can. We've got we can't judge ourselves badly, because what we did, if it was right, it was loving, and it helped the other person without causing more harm, then how can we judge ourselves for that? Now, the other object I mentioned is Ceres, who's in Cancer. Ceres is the divine mother aspect. She's the nurturing principle. So in Cancer we're talking about emotional nurturing. So this is connecting with our emotions and ideally learning to master them. So this doesn't mean that we suppress them, but it means that we're not controlled by them either. We can feel our emotions freely. We don't feel like we have to bury them or suppress them, but at the same time we're not overwhelmed by them. So imagine our emotions are like a river. The river is always flowing, yet it's contained by its banks. It's not flooding and overwhelming, nor is it dammed up and unable to flow properly, where it will eventually cause problems when that dam breaks. If we never block that flow of emotions and we just feel it and watch it go by whilst keeping it contained within its relevant area, we can still feel our emotions without being overwhelmed by them, because we're engaging with the flow, we're not overwhelmed by it. And the more we can connect with and master our own emotions and bring calm to them, the more easily we can then radiate that self-love to other people, because the more we can love ourselves, the more we can love other people. We cannot give other people what we don't already have. So if we don't have love for ourselves, by default we can't truly love another person. We can try and help them, but it's not going to be from love, because we don't love ourselves yet, so we don't understand how to provide loving service to another person. Whereas if we do love ourselves first and we retrain our emotions so that they move towards loving the self rather than judging the self, moving away from self-hatred, low self-worth and negative self-beliefs, and use the power of love through connecting with the higher power, which if we break free of the wound of Chiron by connecting with that higher power, these issues naturally tend to dissolve away. Because when we break free of the control of the ego, where it's telling us we're not good enough, or we're not worthy enough, or we shouldn't be feeling these things even though we are, we can bring balance back to our lives. We can feel true connection to life, and we can provide that loving service because our hearts are wide open, we've healed ourselves, and we've got so much love flowing within us that's overflowing outwards and helps other people without us feeling drained by it. So quite a lot to take on board, but I hope it's a useful gauge for what the new moon in Virgo offers us. At the end of the day, there are always there's opportunities, but they never control us. So remember, the new moon doesn't do anything to us. It doesn't necessarily mark any external events going to happen in the world around us, because all external events are the end result of everyone's collective thoughts, intentions and their actions. But the more conscious we are of those, the more we can shift events and the environment around us towards more loving vibration that will help and heal people rather than making existing matters worse through chaos. So the more we can bring order and self-love to ourselves and improve our physical health in the process by healing the mind and healing the body, the better able we are to bring that loving vibration to the rest of the world and bring order to chaos, but not our own sense of what order should be. It's the divine order that underlies everything, but that we've drifted so far away from because we've lost touch with ourselves. So I hope that's a useful gauge of what this new moon can bring. May it bring you many blessings and opportunity for significant growth in your life. Take care.